things, like different time zones and different people. Because I think I've suggested like 10 a.m. to some people, and they were just like, "Yeah, there's no way I'm getting up before 12." Okay.
like I, I, I used to be able to sleep till 12. Now, like I have to like have stayed up literally probably till like 3 a.m. to get enough sleep to go to 12. But like my body just is like, we're old now. We wake up early,
Yeah.
no matter how much sleep you've gotten.
You get up at, and your body's like, okay, well, we're just going to be tired all the time. That's what we do these days. Hello, more casual. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having me.
It's very good to have you. I think you're the first guest I've had without a video.
Without video?
Yeah.
Oh, you guys get to enjoy my Dick Tracy profile picture.
I do. What I will do is I will also hit you up for some thumbnails and we can intersperse some changes so people can see your artwork as we go along. But you're out. So, I mean, we just established, I already messed up today as well because in my head, I think it got to about 2 p.m. because I'm in the UK. And my brain was like, oh, damn, I'm going to be recording. It's like 2 p.m. is like 9 a.m. And then I realized now it's like New York is like 10 a.m. is 2 p.m. and not where you are out on the West Coast. So you're out in Los Angeles?
Yep, straight out of Los Angeles. So what time is it there for you right now?
So it's almost 6 p.m.
Jeez.
It's
your whole day is gone.
I fit stuff
and
in.
Mine is just starting.
I've got another good, like, I don't know, 4 hours before, but my brain goes, we should just.
So crazy how we're rotating right
now. I know. It's madness. I'm kind of used to it though. I work with a lot of Americans in my regular job. So it's one of those things of I've known so many people in different time zones that I've gotten used to just everyone being awake all the time. There's always someone to talk to at any one time of the day.
See, if I had finished my coffee before you had said that, you would have got the immediate sarcastic response where I hope you're used to the earth rotating. You've used it your whole life.
I never get fully used to that. You get nauseous when you wake up. You're like, oh, we're still moving.
At least it's not like at least we're not Australian where we don't need to be, strapped to the ground so we don't float into space.
Definitely. That's the one rule. I think the furthest away distance I managed to do for the podcast so far is Japan as well. And that was a late recording of figuring out time zones.
Yeah.
But we got there in the end. I'm terrible at introducing people. So I'm going to let you introduce yourself, who you are and what do you do?
Where do I start? Well, my name is Anthony Carranza, if in case Graham didn't introduce me. I'm a cartoonist out of Los Angeles. So I specialize in retro style, retro inspired, kind of in a weird limbo space of that, where sometimes it looks like I'm trying to replicate it versus sometimes I'm just trying to pull inspiration from it. Mm-hmm. Just kind of depends on the day. But I do primarily comic books. Well, I'm starting to. I have several books in the works. I've been tired lately. But I've been drawing for about, let's see, we're coming up on 6 years.
Okay.
Only 6 years.
Only 6 years.
Only 6 years actually going at it. Okay. Like I've always, doodled here and there.
I was going to say, like, if you picked it up in 6 years and then you hit the ground running this well, that's super impressive.
Yeah. Just basically just a super athlete and amazing and perfect. So I played a lot of sports growing up, but in high school, obviously, when you play sports, you need to stay eligible for sports. So art classes were an easy way to stay eligible, and it turns out I actually really enjoyed art.
That's interesting.
So, when I was a freshman, I took like introduction to art because I always doodled and used to draw little stick figures. I was a weird kid. I used to draw stick figure wars where there would be like bombings and like trench
that's not a weird
wars.
kid. I did that. That's a
Okay, good. I'm glad I'm not the only
I
one.
feel like that's a standard thing at some point in your brain. You're just like, well, if I draw this stick figure and it's shooting this
Yeah.
stick figure, and then this stick figure is also at war with this stick figure, and it just
And
grows
then
and
like
grows.
this stick figure is severed from the combat, and
Yep.
this is his stick figure friend who now has PTSD with it.
Nobody wins in stick figure wars.
Boys will be boys.
Nobody wins.
But so I started an introduction to art, and it was very remedial, like
Right.
learning to draw the figure, essentially how to shade circles. Very, very, very basic. Then sophomore year, I took art two, which was like a substantial leap, honestly. Like they were like, okay, today we're gonna be painting. I'm like, wait, I don't remember how to draw the figure. And then after that, I took art three, which was pretty much me just drawing, and I kind of was picking it up and started to really like it. And I was like, I really do enjoy this. I probably should start drawing more. And then senior year, I was like, God, I'm not sure if you guys use this word in the UK, senioritis, where you just don't feel like learning anymore.
I mean, I've never heard that term before, but I can completely relate to at some point in your education just going, you know what? Yeah, no, I'm done.
Yeah, so I was like, drawing is a lot of work, and the assignments are really hard in art four, because art four is basically at the school I went to, art four is you create a piece within the parameters and then it's graded.
Right.
But so I took ceramics and I really enjoyed that. And that's when I got kind of into character design of like, I really liked to make little figurines and characters. And I really caught on to ceramics quicker than I caught on to drawing, actually, to where you're just making simple shapes to make something a character. And I always enjoyed that. And then after that, I just started playing baseball a lot more. And then I continued to play baseball after high school until the point to where I wasn't playing baseball every day. And then I was like, well, now I need a new hobby. So I went back to drawing.
That's interesting. I mean, so like, I mean, I've never been an athlete in the UK, shockingly. But it's like scholarships and that kind of thing aren't such a thing within the UK. They're not kind of like you can get points for being in the team or anything like that. It's usually your education and then whatever you stack on top of that. So it's interesting to the idea of taking an art class as kind of like a kickback class. Like here it's like you will study art.
There's gonna be some listeners that are like this and I know this is live, so they're gonna be like, this F and a-hole just completely just was doing this for S's and gigs.
I don't know, like the amount of people I had in my so not, I mean, it's always weird because I always say college, but college means something different to you. But I was like 17, like that age education. We were in those college art classes. We had a lot of people within our first year who were studying like advanced mathematics and economics, and they took art because it was a relaxing thing to do compared to all their other classes. And I was like, yeah. I could see that. I could see that being the same for like sport.
And like that's what makes art in general just fun. It's just like usually your best work is when you're just messing around making it.
We'll come back to that, but I'm curious. So you got into drawing, you got into doing your work. Why vintage stuff? Why not new stuff?
That's actually a more complicated answer than how I started drawing. So obviously I had let's see, how do I word how to start this? Let's keep it simple.
Okay.
Straight timeline. Born to parents who were relatively young. My mother had me when she was 20 and my father 21.
Okay.
So my grandparents were in my life very much so, still are to this day. And so when your parents are young and working, your grandparents are the ones who watch you. So you grow up around a lot of old stuff. Um, and especially with cable networking really having a renaissance during my upbringing in the early 2000s, there was Boomerang, which was a Cartoon Network sub channel that played pretty much old Hanna-Barbera all day.
Yep.
And
We
so
used to only get Boomerang in our house. We didn't have proper cable, but we'd get Boomerang.
that is amazing. That is all you need. You don't need anything else but Boomerang. So I grew up with a little bit of Boomerang, watching shows such as The Jetsons and let's see, what's another good example that I really enjoyed. I liked all of it, obviously. The Josie and the Pussycats, Scooby Doo, just a little bit of everything. And then fortunately got to grow up with the likes of Gennady Tarkovsky, pretty much animating your entire childhood with with cool cartoons such as Samurai Jack, and I think he did Dexter's Laboratory as well.
Yeah, I think so. I think there's a hand in that because there's like a link with Powerpuff Girls as well or something.
Yeah. So there's Powerpuff Girls as well. So all of those shows are, and then also as well as Butch Hartman with Fairly Odd Parents and Danny Phantom, which are all just super passively retro atomic style cartoons. And so when I got into that, that's when I first started drawing for a good part of like 6 months. When I was really starting an art Instagram, I was doing really, really poorly drawn mid-century style cartoons. And I thought that was good for a while. And then I was like, this kind of sucks. I'm going to kind of challenge myself. So I always really liked Johnny Quest.
Yeah.
And I wanted to learn how to draw Johnny Quest and like the Super Friends, because I like the Super Friends a lot too.
That's interesting, yeah.
And so I figured out, hey, these guys are just drawing like comic book guys. Let's learn to draw comics. And then what I actually learned is comic books are drawn by just cartoonists. And then so I'm like, well, it looks like I need to be a cartoonist if that's what I want to make. So I just learned how to draw cartoons.
I was gonna ask that actually, because I noticed on your Instagram you reference yourself as a cartoonist, not as an illustrator or anything like that.
I like to think that the best kind of comic book artists call themselves cartoonists, because like you should have the capacity to create characters, not just illustrate them. That's not a shy to anybody who doesn't. If you want to be a professional illustrator, have at it. But
it's just a hot take of the day.
Yeah. I'm just full of hot takes. I hope people don't come from my head.
I mean,
I've also only had one cup of coffee, and I'm an artist from Los Angeles. That's not enough.
I mean, it depends how fragile people's egos are, I guess, in that sense. But no, I get what you mean, though. I think it's very much as because I always have the argument. I started like 3 thoughts there. I'll track back. But like I always have the argument between kind of like illustration and fine art, and I think cartooning falls into another category as well, where illustrators will be like, well, cartoons aren't illustration. I'm like, well, how can they not be part of the same world?
Yeah.
You're using the same skill set. It's just the story you're telling is what differs and what ranges. So why would you even want to separate them? Why would you want to separate that from that? So I found it very interesting that you kind of you took that moniker of like, I'm a cartoonist.
Yeah.
I do.
Well, like there's also not a lot of cartoonists left in the comic book world. There are, obviously, but they're just kind of buried by the big companies in comics. Like I don't trying to word this nicely. It's not bad to have the writer and illustrator combo. It works. Stan Lee, Jack Kirby, Stan Lee, and everybody else. But at the same time, it's nice to have creators such as like Chester Gold with Dick Tracy, Charles Schultz with the Peanuts.
Yeah. Definitely.
So I kind of want to follow that line more, but I do enjoy working with other writers. I have projects working on right now that are written by other people, and it's fun. It's
Yeah.
it doesn't really matter. You just don't be one dimensional.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think I've ever drawn a character for somebody else. I've drawn things for myself and ideas for myself, but I don't think I've ever drawn anything for anyone else.
It's
But
hard
yeah, I imagine that would be hard. Like,
because, for one, I'm really stubborn. Like, I am very strong-willed creatively, to the point to where, like, so I'm working on a Western that he's practically my best friend. We've known each other for, I think we're coming up on 8 years now. So I guess he makes the category of best friends. If he gets around to listening to this, I hope he doesn't hear that. But so he wrote it, he created all the characters, and he gave me very detailed descriptions. And so I drew him up a concept. And so I already announced it, so I'll just say it's for Rodeo and the Devil's Guitar. If there's little drawings of it on my Instagram still already. It's a Western that talks about a cowboy who sold his soul to the devil for a guitar. And then he goes to a town and meets a priest who is going to help him get his soul back. That's the most basic explanation I could give to it. But
yep.
Yeah. So I drew Rodeo, who's the main character, the protagonist, and he was like, "Oh, I hate it." I'm like, "Well, are you the one drawing it?" And I swear, we argued for like 2.5 hours till I was like, "Okay, I will fix that one thing, but nothing else."
That's a really
and it was like such like a little thing. He's like, "I just don't like how angular you made his jaw." I'm like, "Well, in my perception, when I read it, he has an angular jaw." It's just, it's funny. It's funny being a stubborn creative, because we're all that way.
It's one of those oddities, especially when it comes to like something which is produced for like a book and not motion, where you're reading text and then you're picturing something in your head, and then someone else can read that text and just be like, "Yeah, I didn't picture them like that at all." Which I think is why like so many films get doomed when they remake books, because you're doing a real specific version. You can't meet everyone's expectation.
Yeah.
What this guy's going to look like.
So I know I don't know if people ask you this when you're on podcasts. So when you do your style of work, do you find a lot of like flashback at people who are like, "Well, this is not really what I wanted," like yourself?
Yes and no. I'm quite secular in that it's very rare that I've done work which has been commissioned by people with an idea. Usually it's more, I'm creating this and someone sees it and says, "Oh, I really, I like that," or "I'm interested in what you're doing. Can I have a copy of what you're doing?" Sort of thing. So I've not had the experience of just someone coming to me with an idea and saying, "Hey, here's the idea." But I've had a couple of occasions. I think I did some drawing for a company once, which, now the more I think of it, it's one of those stories where I think about it and the less comfortable I am about it. Was they were like an IT security company, and they wanted a visualization of someone watching a bunch of security cameras.
That's
Which is,
you could have gone like so like
yeah,
dystopian. That would be, I would just give like a full length illustration, and they would probably not like it.
yeah.
I'd have to redo it anyways, and I was like, "Well, that sucks."
I think I recall I did something fairly dark, and I gave them it, and they were like, "Oh, okay," they liked that enough, but they didn't really question it. And I never saw what happened to the illustration, so I assumed they never used it, and they were just like, "Okay, let's pay him and get him out there," because it was just such a weird concept of like, this is how they wanted to present themselves. It was like an all-knowing, all-seeing view of everything. And
that's hilarious.
Yeah, very, very Big Brother.
you, you like how I flipped that back to you, huh? Now we're interviewing you. It's you're the one who's yelling at concrete.
Exactly. We're watching everywhere. We're a little bit of everywhere, and now we've brought it round. I mean, I
No,
kind of.
but I honestly, back to what you had said about giving something to the client and not getting back to you.
Hmm,
I hate doing commissions. I think that's my biggest art goal, is to get to a point in my life to where I don't need to do commissions.
that makes sense. Yeah. Do you get a lot of requests for reproduction? I assume.
Yes.
Right.
Can you draw me Superman? That's
Right.
always a no. um, I only really like to do commissions if there's going to be, obviously, sometimes I'll take the personal one. Like I did a commission recently where this guy asked me to draw an angel in space.
Okay.
And that was really cool because I'm like, that's why I took it, because I'm like, interesting concept. I'll do it, even though it's a
Yeah.
personal commission. But I don't really like to do the personal commissions because I don't feel like I want to dedicate my time to drawing stuff for other people all the time.
Mhm.
So I open it up every like 6 months or so. But when I do take commissions, I like to have a physical product because I like to stroke my ego and see T-shirts and cans and other stuff with my art on it. No, not because of the ego, just because I think it's important to have a physical product to your work.
Yeah.
I think that makes a legacy to it.
Yeah. Definitely becomes part of kind of the. It's weird to say we're like part of the culture overall because it's out there, and it means
Yeah,
anyone could pick it up. That's the
that
line.
way,
Go ahead.
when I'm dead and gone, someone can find a mug that I designed in a Goodwill for
Yeah.
$2.
I've had this exact thought. There was I was having a conversation a while back because like most of my illustrations I throw onto a t-shirt at some point because
Yeah,
I like the idea of it and I design things specifically t-shirts. Some things I do specifically for posters, but I remember someone saying it was like, well, it's not really art because you're making merchandise from it. And I was like, well, it is because if the concept fits the t-shirt and it
yeah,
works because it's on a t-shirt, then it adds to it. And I love the idea of like someone in a charity shop 20 years from now finding a random t-shirt and be like, I have no idea who made this. And
yeah. And
like,
then
I mean,
but what people don't, I think a lot of artists don't get is, I think this is a lot of creatives in general. Like, so obviously in my world with comics,
mhm,
you are not going to make money making comics. I try to tell people that all the time. You will not make a livable wage on comics unless you're working for DC or Marvel
yeah,
or Image. Uh, basically the big four: Image, Dark Horse, and Dynamite. And that's literally working for them as freelance projects where you're not going to get paid every day of the year.
yep.
So, point being made again, it's merchandising. So, for anyone that's ever seen Spaceballs, it's merchandising.
You've got to
You
do the
need
merchandise.
like for me, so my main character is obviously Sonic Saturn.
Yep.
So when you come out with Sonic Saturn the comic, you create Sonic Saturn the T-shirt, Sonic Saturn the action figure, Sonic Saturn the lunchbox. you know that's how media properties make money. Is so when you create something, you have to have the idea of how can you create a legacy out of this product? How can I make, like, with Star Wars, it was the Kenner action figures. With GI Joe was their action figure line, but then again, that's even a more so example to sell merchandise, which makes more money. You just make secondary stuff such as comics and TV shows.
Yeah. Well, you start with
And I
the
don't,
product first, don't you? Work your
yeah,
way backwards.
yeah, that was the 80s. That was the 80s. It was like, we got toys. How do we market them?
Yeah.
Feature length commercials.
Feature length commercials. Like, what do? Nothing. But everyone's going to watch them and they're all going to
Yeah.
want to buy the toy.
And I think that's the hard bridge, is like when people want to say, well, I want to be a full-time artist.
Mhm.
You have to figure out how to monetize it. And then you have to become what I like to call an entrepreneur.
Ooh.
So you have to figure out how to monetize your work. And that's hard because,
Yeah.
for one, you have to, you know, let your ego create a price tag for you that actually is reasonable. And then you have to not only that, not sacrifice it for the fear of not getting clients, because people will pay, you know.
Yeah.
Like, if, and I always try to tell people, I had this conversation with another artist. So I moderate a Discord, so I talk to a lot of artists a lot for commission questions and stuff. What if they don't like my price? So I'm like, well, then they don't value you.
Yeah.
But not only that, you have to be willing to understand that there's a perceived value to your price tag. So if someone's saying, hey, can you, so in this instance, I'll keep them anonymous, but I'll explain the project. They wanted a gouache painting,
right,
of a subject in a scene, and he charged them $20.
$20.
And I'm like, you have to understand, okay, there's two things. One, what can you get for $20? Two, they're gonna think that your gouache painting is not that good because they're only paying $20.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, if you say, okay, I'll do this for $250, they're like, okay, that's a realistic price. You know,
Yeah.
The client is going in thinking they're gonna have to pay extra money.
Yeah.
Unless, you know, they're crazy. And, you know, there's the outliers who just think we work for free. But
Oh, there's always the people who think you work for free. I think
yeah,
I always get shocked when someone comes with a price and they're like, and you're like, yeah, no, I'm going to pay you, and I'm like, oh, I've gotten so used to people just approaching me and being like, can you just do this?
yeah.
Because you can do this,
So
right? Like,
yeah, the best question, and the one that a lot of people like, I don't know why people haven't figured this out, because I learned it from, I forgot where I picked this up. The best question you can ask when you're doing commissions is, what's your budget for the project? Because then you get a general idea. It's a professional way to ask, how much can I charge you? Because then you don't lose the client. Because if, you know, not everyone can pay $250, granted. You know, like, for example, the guy who asked for a personal angel commission, he just wants a piece of art for his house. That's a personal work. Or I think he gave it as a gift or something. I don't remember.
yeah,
But nonetheless, I asked what his budget was, and he said, best I could do is probably $120. So now I get a general idea. Okay, he wants a single piece. I'll do it for blank price.
yeah.
And you don't want to say, oh, I'll do it for $120, because, you know, you don't want to take the whole budget away either, because if there's revisions being made,
Yeah.
then you can't upsell it. Look at me, I'm giving positive advice.
You're giving stellar business advice. It's one of those things of which I mean, when you said entrepreneur, it made me shudder, because I'm at constant war with myself in terms of making things as artistic practice and concept, and making things as product. And separating that in my brain and going, okay, well, you can make things to sell, and you can make things which are art, and having that argument with myself. But I think that, like, the point you kind of said there was like, yeah, if you're asking someone their budget, first off, you get to know what kind of price range they're in. So it allows you to think in your head, what can I do for that price? What am I willing to do? How much time am I willing to spend to go on that price? But also, if they explain the project to you, you might decide, you know what, it might be worth me cutting my budget for this one, you know?
Yeah.
Just
Because you might actually make something you actually like to do.
Yeah.
Like, so me taking that cut, I got to do an angel drawing, which, you know, I'm sad I don't get to post it because I really like it.
I think this is one thing which I've done. So I'm on Reddit, and I follow the subreddit for a cartoon called Home Movies, which you may remember. But essentially, there's a lot of film posters in the background of the cartoon, because it was about a kid making home movie films. And I found that I can reproduce those very easily and very quickly. And someone was like, oh, well, can you make me one? How much would you charge for it? I was like, well, you know, it's not my work. It's a reproduction. It's not my idea. I'm literally just making you a prop from this film. So if I do the work for you, I'll charge you the cost of what I would charge if I sold this as a poster. And I just retain all the rights, and I can post it. And then you get the poster over, which is what you wanted in the first place. And I get to, you know, have a piece which is already mine.
That's a really good way to approach it. You know, like, it's a lot of people are like, well, I have a flat commission rate. And then when you have the flat commission rate, you really alienate a lot of people.
Well, yeah.
because either it's too low or it's too high, because on the downside there are people who can't pay you, so you lose out on that work.
Yeah.
And then on the other side, you miss out on money because there are people who could pay more. So for example, if you know Lucky Graham gets a call from Marvel Comics to illustrate a comic book cover, and you have a flat rate of $250 for a commission. What?
You're about to get screwed by Marvel Comics.
Yeah. But if you have, for example, let's see, let's make a scenario: a single dad who wants a cartoon of him and his kids.
Yeah.
In his living room, he doesn't want to pay $250 either. So you just alienated two different clients by having a flat rate. It's just, can't cookie cutter things. Life has variables.
You gotta keep it accessible as well. I find with a lot of work. Like the thing which I hate most, and is probably the biggest pet peeve of artists, is when they'll bring out like a t-shirt and they'll be like, yeah, this is $50. Oh, this is 50 quid. And you're like, okay. And like, oh no, we're doing
how much is quid in American?
Okay, so if you're paying 50 quid in the US, in the UK, you're paying about $70-$80 for a t-shirt. Like even if we did it in dollars, if someone was charging $50 for a t-shirt, and I'm sat thinking, okay, why is it so much when it's a t-shirt? Because you've already blocked out the people who like your work and can't afford to spend that on clothing, because it's clothing, it's going to wear, it's going to tear, no one's going to put it in a box and merchandise hold it. So you're blocking out so many people, or they'll be like, oh yes, limited run, and I'm like, but it's a mass-produced product. Unless you're hand stitching these products, like, why are you doing this to the public?
That's the thing, is like, if you want to make, there's a lot of problems with products nowadays where they have this perception that they're collectible, and so they put this high price margin, but that really doesn't do anything. It just alienates people. We'll go down a whole rabbit hole for that one, but we're gonna get off topic.
That's why we have an hour. We can go wherever we want. But anyway,
back to just t-shirts. There was one thing I wanted to say when people were like, well, it's not, you're creating art. It's not, it's merchandise, not art. But what if I drew this amazing spaceman on a black t-shirt and I use the black as the negative space? And there's a lot of variables you could do to making a t-shirt artistic. That was just like right off the top of my head. I had to get that out there.
It is one of those things of like, I can completely see it if you like you said, if you strapped a t-shirt to a canvas and you painted onto it and you like, this is a one-off piece which I've made, it just happens to be on the back of a t-shirt. Like, fair enough. I can see that. That's something which someone can buy, own. It'd be weird if they wore it at that point, but more power to them if they've got the money to. But yeah, when it's something like you're sending to a print company and like manufacturing through China somewhere and just getting it sent back, I'm like, okay, I recently saw, do you know the artist Damien Hirst?
Yes.
Yeah, so he recently brought out some prints, and they're just poster prints, and they're like £1,000 a print.
Jeez.
And I'm like, why? And also, like, the screen cap which they put up was so high resolution. I was like, I could probably copy and paste that and make an A3 version and sell it cheaper.
So my prints are pretty pricey, I will say, but that's because I don't have a cheap way to make them at the moment. And I don't emphasize selling prints; it's completely optional. But even then, I think my prints are pricey, and you pay like $30-$40 for a print.
That's not bad for a print, though.
It spikes up pretty high if you want to buy it with a frame. That's what I like to think, is like, you're paying, someone's like, well, this is $60 for a frame print. I'm like, you're paying for the frame too. So
that's the thing which I find about when you kind of like use in between websites. Like, it's like when they add, like, obviously they add their commission to it, and then they're like, oh yeah, we can do framed versions in this. I'm like, yeah, but then your price is getting up high again. And like, I'd rather just sell.
I always envy like Robin Banks, for example, the cartoonist Robin Banks, because they screen print all their own stuff.
Yeah.
And that's something I really want to do, but there's nowhere around me locally that can do that. That kind of like, for LA being regarded as such like an art scene,
Yeah, I was gonna say
there's
that's
not a lot of
surprising.
emphasis on art. you know,
What is LA
It-
about if it's not about? I'm curious.
pretending to be an artist.
Just go down to San Diego and like hang out
Not
with
even
San
that. If you
Diego
want
people.
to, most of the art town in California would probably be like Ventura, California, and which is nowhere anyone's heard of. It's
Right.
about an hour. It's probably like 45 minutes to an hour past LA.
Okay.
And when you go there, it's just like super hipster old town Ventura. There's just like that's a scene.
Yeah.
If you're an artist and you come to California, go to Ventura. Don't go to LA. The only thing you're gonna see is pee stains and
He stains and car battles.
and angel wing murals to take pictures for your Instagram in front of.
That's what you want. I mean, it's just like kind of the same in the UK. I think like you get places like London, which are regarded as like, it's so culture and it's London, it's the capital, it should have everything. And then when you go there, you're like, well, there is like screen printing stuff, but it's stupidly overpriced.
That's LA.
Yeah.
Like I'm like, oh, I want a screen print prints. Okay, that'll be $500 for an order of 100. I'm like, why?
Yeah. Luckily, that there is a like up north in the UK, there is quite a few which has like started up over the last few years, which have kind of come in, and you can get screen prints and lithograph prints and all these kinds of things. But yeah, it's so heavily swayed. The key is to monopolize yourself.
So what's the art town in the UK?
It varies so much. We're quite an odd country in my view of city to city has something different. Every city has a thing which it does, and depending on where that city is, depends what kind of artwork you're going to get out of it. So like Sheffield, which is kind of center of the UK but northern, is very music scene. So all your music stuff goes on in Sheffield. Whereas you move over to like Leeds has a big music scene, but it's also very print heavy in Leeds. And then London is a lot more digital. They've got a lot more digital art scene, and they've got a lot more kind of installation stuff, because obviously they have the space within a major city. They've got so many buildings. Where I am is just a black hole of creative stuff. Yeah. There's nothing because I'm out in the east of the UK.
I've actually recently become quite good friends with a UK based illustrator, and they live in a very rural area. I forget the name. It's not even a town, it's a village. I think they said they have about 1,000 people that live there. And so talking to them about the art scene, I'm like, wow, I thought I was, struggling, but thanks to social media, it doesn't really matter where you are,
Yeah, that's the benefit. I mean, I always find social media kind of gives and takes. It's like, it gives in the sense of like contacting you, you're out in the US. Most of my guests this year have been not based in the UK, and I managed to get hold of them. But on that side, it's like, okay, so it introduces people to me and introduces people to the podcast, but them ordering work from me is so expensive. Yeah. The likelihood of making a sale is quite slow, like low down.
Yeah. And that's one thing when I'm worried about with my comics is like, and that's why I'm leaning towards getting a publisher rather than doing it by myself. It's just, I want my stuff to get out there, and the easier it is, the better for everybody,
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to spend money printing it anyway. So giving money to a publisher isn't really that bad. Excuse me.
As long as you get hold of them.
But yeah, social media is, it's an interesting tool if you use it correctly. A lot of people don't. In the art scene, they emphasize the wrong things for, rightfully so. We seek validation through followers and likes rather than networking through comments and making friends with other artists to grow.
I'm definitely one of those. No, I'm not one of those people who emphasizes the wrong thing. I just don't have the kind of the patience to learn the things I should be doing on social media. And
it's actually really
simple.
I could sum it up in one sentence of how to grow on social media. And this is if anyone takes a note right now, it's this one. The key to growing on social media is to be social on social media.
It's so simple. It's right in the name.
Yeah. like, and don't do this. Don't do, oh, I love your art. I make art too. You should check me out.
Yeah, don't do that.
No one likes that. No one
That's
likes
getting
that
you blocked. That's what's happening.
Yeah. You should say, I love your art. This is really cool. And talk to that artist about, well, what do you do when you do that? I'm like, oh, I like that too. And then you show them one of your drawings, and do this via DM. You can't do this. You have an intimate conversation through DM.
Yeah.
Where you're actually connecting to that person and you share art, like how you and I are talking creatively. You can do that on social media and make a real connection. And then boom, you have one real person who actually knows your work.
Yeah.
I try to put it in the perspective always that like my social media, me posting art on it is like me setting up a table on the street and putting all my art there.
Yep.
If 10,000 people follow me, okay, but they don't engage with me, that's just 10,000 people walking past my table and just looking at it and leaving, versus 300 people, so 300 followers who all come and talk to you and like look at your art and actually study it. And that's the more valuable way to look at your art.
Yeah.
And in general, the number of followers you don't have is it's crazy how people say, well, I only have 150 followers on Instagram, I need more. But they don't think I have 150 strangers who appreciate my art.
Yeah, definitely.
And that's a lot of people.
It is. I mean, it's interesting you kind of you describe it in that way, because when you were talking about it, I was thinking that usually those connections are the ones you make when you go do like an art fair or like a zine fair or a publication fair, something where you're sat next to other artists for the entire day.
Yeah.
And you're going to chat, you're going to discuss how you make work, where you got stuff printed, the best places to go. And then when people come and engage, they engage with you, which makes you a person. And they not that they feel obligated, but they feel polite to have a conversation with you.
Yeah. And the thing about it is when you create that quality following of people, it grows a lot slower. It's not instant, but you have to cast away that aspect of instant gratification if you want to create lifelong art. The first part of me on social media, my presence was a lot of emphasis on I need the almighty 10K follower. Nowadays I don't even look at the follower number. It grows every day. It fluctuates. You're gonna put so much emphasis, but people I see a lot of people get a problem where they're like, oh, I get followers, but they unfollow me.
Yeah.
Well, if you, connect with people, they're not going to follow you because they want to talk to you.
Yeah.
And I know that's hard for some people. I know it's not easy, especially, a lot of artists are very introverted.
Yeah.
But, you got to come out of your shell a little bit, especially if you want to create a platform,
Oh, definitely. I mean, someone asked me kind of about the show, and that's, oh, how many clicks do you get? I'm like, I don't really care about clicks.
Yeah, I don't know.
I care about, retention, or if I get a comment and someone's like, oh, I really enjoyed this point you made. And I said that my marketing strategy isn't, get to 10K followers. It's to get people like one by one. And if that happens by me literally inviting you on the podcast to come talk about things, that's how it's going to happen.
Yeah. And
I will chip away at
you. Who's like let's see, like who's a popular artist? Like, okay, so I'll go back to Robin. Okay, I don't even know how many followers Robin has. They have a lot. Okay. They're Salt Lake City based, so they're not even like LA. They don't know. They're right in the smack dab in the middle of the Four Corner Desert of the United States. They don't know how many followers they have, but they have a lot. And they know the thing about Robin is they know their followers' names. They know the kind of art they do. And like, that's quality over quantity, and it grows substantially, either way, you're going to get followers
Yeah.
regardless of what you do. It just comes from the quality of your work. That's another thing too. If you're not at where you're at in the quality of your work, you can't expect to be on par with people. But that just comes with practice. That's not instant.
Yeah, definitely. I think like this kind of comes around to what you were kind of suggesting when we were chatting over email was, I think as much as those are kind of great ideas and the great ways to approach making work, you mentioned this idea that you need a positivity to creating
Yeah,
work and a
you
comfort to
need
it, I guess.
you need to have a positive creative outlook.
Can you explain them?
Frank Frazetta used to always say, you can only have one masterpiece and you'll never know which one is your masterpiece. That's for other people to decide. You just need to create work consistently that you kind of like enough to put out there. And I guarantee you, illustrators from prior to social media, so like before social media existed, like Frank Frazetta, Wally Wood, Jack Kirby, Andy Warhol, they created art that they were like, this is kind of good, let me sell this. Yep. So nowadays we're in the world where we don't have to sell it to put it out there on display. So you have to put it out there with the idea of like, this is good, I like it, I hope other people like it, but don't care if they don't, because you made it for yourself. Others are just privileged to see it.
Yeah, I'd agree with that too. I mean, I'd say to an extent, but
yeah, no. See, like, I wholeheartedly know I have a very egotistical approach to my art. When I make something, I understand that it's a privilege that people get to see it because I'm allowing people to see it. I don't have to post it if I didn't want to.
That's interesting.
And so
that's a way of looking at it. Yeah.
Well, when you look at it that way, you and it's hard to be full of yourself for a second, but you have to, because it's a harsh world. A lot of people are cynical. People are not going to like you either way. There's enough people to not like your work, but there's not enough people to like your work. So at least you have to like it.
Yes, definitely. I agree with that in the sense of I think I said before is like the work which I show to the world is like 10%. It's 10% of what I'm actually doing, because most of the time I'm doing like I'm sure you do is like sketches, doodles, just ideas constantly. If you
pages and pages, you draw every day, right?
You'd be flooding. Yeah, like you draw every day, and and people are like, oh, you create so much. I'm like, no, that's 10% of what I'm doing the rest of the time.
Yeah, and a lot of people don't understand. You don't have to post every day. You don't have to post every art you make. A lot of it, like I have a whole book specifically that's just experimental stuff that's just so bad, but it's me learning on a regular basis. And you need to make art for yourself more than you make for others, and then your final products are just for people.
Yeah.
So like, for example, when I was experimenting with recreating Charlton comic covers, I have so many first of all, the first ones I started were traces. I would trace old comic covers, create some muscle memory of how they were presented, and then the lettering styles, and then I would have one that are really bad with lettering, and the new lettering didn't fit with the old ones. So that one's scrapped, and then you get this final product that everyone's like, "Wow, this is so good." I'm like, "Yeah." Put a lot of work into that.
This wasn't just something I picked up one day and just happened to be able to do it.
Yeah. And a lot of people, my favorite question too is, how do I make that old comic look? Right.
Yeah.
And I think this would be a good thumbnail right here, would be to put one of my mock comic covers. A lot of people don't know is I actually make those from scratch. I take old books and I make scans of them, or I take pictures of them, and then I pair it with textures that I've purchased to make these full mock-ups that I just slap the art on top of, which is an art in itself.
Yeah.
With I think we could coin it with the retro world, the art of distress and decay.
Yeah. I mean, which it's texture.
A lot of people don't know how to do it, and they slap it on, and you could tell they don't know how to do it. And I think if more people took the time to study how paper rips and tears and folds, it would really elevate that retro work that they really want to do.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's a kind of a blend of technique and comfort when creating work. I think
Yeah.
for anybody, it's never all one thing or the other. Like you said, like you mentioned, it's kind of like ego. It's like, well, it's not really ego. It's more just like you're comfortable with sharing it. You're comfortable with putting out into the world, but you're not showing everyone everything you're doing
Yeah.
to a full extent. You're just going, well, this is the stuff which I got to a point which I'm happy with and comfortable
Yeah.
with now. So I'm putting out.
It's just a level of confidence, like a good word would be empowerment. You're empowered with your art if you're creatively confident in your ability. So you have to put your confidence towards your strengths and then experiment with your weaknesses, but you don't have to share your weaknesses.
Yes, I think as well. It's almost there's what's the way to kind of put it? There's a healthier longevity to doing work that way than doing it the opposite, where everything you put out, you're saying this is shit.
Yeah.
I say, oh, look
Yeah.
at my drawing. This one's terrible. Like, don't
Yeah.
worry. But I'm putting it out because I have to put something out, and
Yeah.
a lot of people do that. They go down the full negative, the full nihilist line, and I'm like, okay, well, if you continue that for 10 years, you're going to feel terrible. You might have a huge following because people might like the attitude, but you're going to feel terrible.
Well, when I first started, I created so much art and I was trying so hard to satisfy people that like I used to just archive work, like the archive feature on Instagram.
Yeah.
I used to archive. I'm like, I don't want to show that anymore. It's not my, I changed my style.
Yeah.
I hate that word, style. But we'll go back to that. I'll continue on the style train. But so I was talking to this. He's a younger guy. He's doing comics now. He's just starting. He's really talented. It's really good to start off. He's on the right track, but he archived a bunch of his work. And I found out because when I did the Tiki Man Draw This in Your Style, his piece won. And he archived it because he said that he didn't think it was good. Lo and behold, he actually won. It was the one I picked. That's your ego can sometimes get in the way and can also hurt you at the same time. Back to that, but I told him, I was like, you have to embrace the fact that you may not like it, but other people will. And when you get people, so back to the analogy that this is your table on the street, people want to see that creative journey and your improvement. People will be proud of you to see, like, so if I have some art on my Instagram, like if you scroll way down, I know I have a lot of art on there. If you scroll way down, there's some stuff that's like, I hate, it's so bad. It is bad quality wise, and it doesn't fit my standard, but I know somewhere a newer artist is going to want to see that journey, and hopefully they feel inspired to practice every day and still continue to improve.
Yeah.
And you have to be comfortable with, like, you can't always show what you're best at either, and you have to embrace the creative journey.
Yeah.
That's important. There's a happy medium. You can't hide your mistakes all the time, and you can't only show your perfection, and you can't always just post everything you make either. There just needs to be a happy medium.
Yeah, I think as well. I think it's kind of like a modern phenomenon, that as well. That whole idea of kind of seeing the artist's story, because like back in the day, obviously you'd have gone to the store and you'd have bought a comic, you'd have bought something, and you'd see it and you're like, oh, cool. So this is by such and such. This is amazing. They must have done, they've gone from straight nothing to doing this every single day. That's insane. How do I figure out you just naturally good at this? Whereas now, like you say, we have this historical record of artists, which is forever existing online to some extent. And it is nice to see because it's more open, it's more sincere. And it creates a better impression for people who want to learn.
Yeah. And a lot of, well, I'm going to go back to the style thing now because now it's relevant. So the creative journey, style is all part of it. And, a lot of people ask that age-old artistic question: how do I find my art style? Or how do I draw this blank style? one, that just comes with practice, and two, style just comes from style is more technique. Style comes from the fundamentals of learning. So I'm going to use Frank Frazetta as an example because obviously he's my favorite artist. So uh, I often, that's another good tip, is find an artist you really like and study the hell out of them to the point to where it feels like you're stalking them.
Know everything about them.
Yeah, know everything about Frank Frazetta. That's my advice. If you want to draw like Pulp Americana, you learn everything there is about Frank Frazetta. Just kidding. No, but when I answered someone's question about how do I find my style using Frank Frazetta once, and it was a really good example because Frank Frazetta had a very wide spectrum creatively, where he had cartoons like Donald Duck style cartoons, but then he also has those ever so loved fantasy paintings with the women and everything. But they're all drawn fundamentally the same because Frazetta knows how to draw that way. That's the way he learned. That was his upbringing. So the lines of action are very simple, but yet there's just a different medium to it. So style just comes from learning, and everything you draw will be in your style. It doesn't matter what you draw. There's different mediums. So I guess when people say they want to find their style, they're asking what medium do I want to find? And with that just comes from draw whatever the hell you want. Like,
yeah, I completely agree with that. Yeah, I think
no one can tell you how. You just have to do it.
I was discussing recently because so this year is 5 years of doing the podcast, and I was looking back at what I've done over the last 10 years. It's kind of getting to this point, and the different things I've done from back then, like 2012 to now, there's a huge range in there. And I was saying, well, one of the kind of key points I thought was to finding where I am now. Because like you say, once you figure out what you do, doesn't matter what medium you go to, it's basically the same process. Someone can tell that that's you, like I've done sculpture and I've done painting and I've done illustration. Someone looks and be like, no, that's something Graham would do. That's his style.
The character, the colors, the general, themes, like the themes is just that those will all stick with you. It's your personality, it's your expression. It's art. Art is expression.
The kind of the key takeaway from it was like the way I developed was everything I did. I looked at the thing I did, and though I might have hated like huge parts of it, I found the bit I liked, and I just kept that. And rolled it back into the next thing I was doing.
That's the key, is you take what you like and you apply it to the next one. You have to isolate the positivity and recognize the negativity and constructively, not sidetracked. Oh, style. But it comes with time and technique. You just, again, you have to be patient. A lot of have the key to having a positive mental attitude and creativity is understand that it doesn't happen overnight. You won't even know when it happens. For me, obviously everyone remembers their big hit. My big hit on Instagram was a drawing that I absolutely hate. It is a haunted house with nothing else. It's all. It was for Halloween, and I got over like almost 1,000 likes on it, which I'm like, why? But I can look at that piece. I'm like, okay, the colors are really good. Yep. The staging is really good. It really tells a story. So now I can draw something I actually like with that in mind, and then I can replicate that success. But don't draw the same thing over and over again, because then it just gets stale.
Yeah, but you're basically just producing NFTs, and nobody wants to do
that. No one wants to produce NFTs. And that's the thing, is like, we'll get back to entrepreneurs. Just don't water down your work for the purpose of profit either, because then you're just gonna hate yourself, and it's gonna become a job.
Yeah, I love the fact that you said that your most popular piece was one you hated. As it seems to be a constant thing with artists. The one which makes it big, doesn't matter who you are. It's the one you hate.
It's like I said, you can only ever have one masterpiece, and you're not going to pick it. you don't get to pick your masterpiece.
It's such a shame as well, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, if we gotta pick our masterpieces, that would be wonderful, but hey, that's not the way it works.
I think,
and it's just, that's why it's important to just post the journey, so people could be a part of that, and then they pick the one that they like the most.
yeah, I think that's a great point to round out. And I was just going to say, I think the one benefit to being like a visual artist is we have the benefit which musicians don't have, that when the one thing which we make, which we hate, goes big, we don't have to keep playing it over and over again.
Yeah.
The amount of bands who have just been like, no, we hate that song, we're never playing it live again, or having like causing such controversy. It was like, no, we get to post it, sell it, but then we're done with it.
I mean, if I was a musician, I just would be like, no, on stage. But then again, we have that luxury to where we don't have to replicate our masterpiece over and over again, But it's good to learn from your masterpiece, and then you can try to create replications in a sense to where you're drawing things you actually want to, but trying to bottle your success and
not trying to formalize it.
Yeah. Instagram really is a formula, like if you want your art to be seen, there is some like key things you can do, is like having an established focal point in the piece, which is important with art in general. But if you have like the character in the middle, that's what people are going to see. And then they can, people they just scroll as fast as they can, and so you have to create something that catches the eye. So that's why a lot of my pieces are yellow. I love the color yellow.
That's interesting.
Yeah. I love the color yellow. I'm colorblind, so using yellow is just easy. It's like, here you go, here's yellow.
That's so interesting. I'm color deficient, and I completely avoid color because I'm just like,
and for a long
black
time,
and white.
you can go back and see like a lot of my art used to use so much black, so much black. But now I've gotten so comfortable with like 3-color principle. I only use 3 colors to color, and I mix them. So I just memorized it. And when I say memorizing color, you get it, because you're just like, I know that one, I know that one, I know that. That's what's cool about digital art too, is you could put color codes in.
Yes, that's the benefit of being able to scroll over a color and be like, what is that? I'm like, oh, yeah, it's that. Oh, okay, yeah, okay,
yeah. Even now do you use Procreate?
Yeah, I do. Yeah.
So the new update with the color swatches where it tells you what color it is.
Yep.
Best thing ever.
So many great tools.
Thing ever.
Yeah. No, I like looking at it, like, yeah, the whole color deficient but Americana pulp, like it makes sense.
Yeah.
Like as a, it's three color principle, which then you can expand over.
Wow, you're colorblind? How do you color so good? I literally only use cyan, yellow, and magenta.
Yes. That's actually blown
my mind. And then
you
just memorize using yellow and blue is green, yellow and magenta is red, and then yellow, and then red or cyan and magenta are purple. It's just memorization at that point,
That's interesting, yeah. Because so when I make paintings, people often say, it's like, oh, I love the colors in this painting, and I always say to them, it's like, well, you're definitely seeing something different to what I'm seeing.
Yeah.
And I love that. I love the fact that I'm never going to see what they're going to see, because of the amount of blending and stuff, which I'm just not capable of. It's all accidental, but you're having a connection with it, so that works.
Funny story. It's funny you're saying that, because I have a funny story for that.
Go on.
And you're gonna get a good laugh. So my first ever character I created, his name was Red Rogers. Blonde mustached cowboy in a blue jumpsuit. He was like a space futuristic cowboy.
Right.
The story itself was really complex, and I later abandoned it because it just I took the elements from that story and applied it to other things. Mm-hmm. But he used to wear this, what I thought was a red jacket for mind you, the good part of 2 years. And I was having a conversation with someone who was asking to draw him. I was like, oh, his jacket's red. They're like, no, it's orange. I'm like, are you sure? I've been drawing that same color for 2 years.
How dare you question that?
My whole life, even my own characters, is a lie.
you get so used to the amount of clothing I've owned and been like, oh, like things in my house, and I've been like, yeah, just grab the blue one.
And they're like, what?
It's like, oh,
There's
grab
no
the black
blue
one.
one
It's
here.
like, there's no, you mean the dark green one? I'm like, no, it's the black one. Like it's over there somewhere. Yeah. Oh, that's interesting.
There's a lot of really talented colorblind artists.
There is.
You know, the High Road Design is colorblind as well on Instagram.
It's surprisingly.
It doesn't
common.
matter.
Yeah.
You know, it does not matter. No. You don't even need a color if you don't want to.
No, you definitely don't.
Make those really cool black and white indie comics.
That's the way to do it.
Yeah.
Abandon colors. Just go black and white. Look kind of edgy.
A lot of people are like, what colors do I need to do to make vintage comics? I'm like, it doesn't really matter. I can literally cite like 8 books that only use the color red or green.
Yeah.
Or I can, the Savage Conan comics, which are amazing, just straight black and white. It doesn't matter, The Hellrider.
That was essentially why I learned to crosshatch and learned to shade, was just because I didn't want to have to use color, and so I was finding ways around it. And
that's why I got into it. And then Retro Supply came out with Color Lab and the 3-color principle. I'm like, this is a good challenge for me. I'm gonna come out of my shell. Boom.
Came out your shell, found your niche, found your style, comfort.
That's how there you go. That's how you find your style. You draw what you like, and then you practice the crap out of it, and then you I'm trying so hard not to swear out here because I don't know the rules.
You can
I didn't ask.
I already did.
Okay. You just draw the shit out of it, and then you grow, and that's the thing. Because but now thanks to me not knowing you, this episode's gonna get not demonetized for you, because I would have been swearing a lot.
That's the beauty of this podcast, is that I don't monetize it.
Oh, okay.
So it was one of my key principles when I set it up. It was like, I want it to be conversation. I want to meet people like yourself, and it should be free. It should be just accessible without adverts. So people can meet us and they can come buy our stuff if they want to support.
You should get some really like off the wall sponsors. That would be really funny though. Like what would be a really funny one? Not like Raid Shadow Legends,
I don't want to be sponsored by like Ted's hardware store in like East Connecticut or something. Just like some complete random off the wall.
If you use the coupon code Yelling at Concrete, you could get a free screwdriver.
Exactly. That's the kind of sponsors I want. I don't want anything like big or like what's the other one, like Mind or Calm or any of those apps. Just like, no, we want wholesome brick and mortar stores. That's who we want to support. Yeah. I love it. I love it all. I think that's a good point to round this out.
Yeah.
After we've promoted Ted's, just for a little bit.
Yeah. And remember, use the code TED Talk at Ted's hardware store.
Just to jump in on the TED Talk action as well.
Yeah.
It's been lovely to
catch up. If we're gonna close out, just keep it positive. Follow both me and Graham on Instagram, or we'll find you.
That's not threatening. Follow us,
yes,
or we'll find you. We will come for you. We'll slide it. We'll be there in the DMs, just like, oh hey, notice that you didn't follow us after we posted that podcast.
Now we're gonna have to have a positive conversation where we talk about work. Yeah.
You'll get dragged in. Obviously, check out on Pulp Americana. That's your Instagram, I believe.
Yeah. At Pulp Americana.
And go find all his cool work there. You mentioned the work you're coming. Have you got anything coming out this year?
Yeah. So Rodeo and the Devil's a Guitar is almost done. I'm also working on the ever so awaited, the one that actually people want, is Sonic Saturn. Mm-hmm. Is just about finished writing. I'm gonna I've illustrated a couple pages already, but that's a very big project. So hopefully that'll be out for this summer or winter.
It might be
one
out
or
by
the
the
other.
time this comes out then.
Yeah.
Potentially.
And let's see. Tiki Man as well is also in the works. So
nice.
If you like tiki and surfing stuff, that one's the one for you.
Who doesn't like tiki and surfing stuff? You know.
Yeah.
Makes you feel warm when you're in the chilly.
Yeah. Yeah.
No, that's been cool, man. It's been cool to catch up with you.
Yeah, man. We got to do this again.
Yeah. On that note, we will talk to these guys later. Bye.
Bye-bye.